Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In this episode, we interview ST Rappaport, who is a brain engineer that faced a challenge in 5th grade when proficient reading eluded her. Despite investing in countless tutoring sessions that resulted in mounting bills, she realized it was time for a different approach, one that would address the root cause. Join us as we delve into her story.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a break. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene, and welcome to another episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. I'm super excited today. We've got ST Rappaport, who is originally from Florida but living in Israel at the moment, and we'll go more in depth around that and why she did that. But she's also the founder of Life Peaks University. So ST, first of all, I want to honor you for coming on our show in such a difficult time, because we know that Israel is at war at the moment and you are in the midst of that, but still you chose to come on our show. I really honor you for that, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with such good people.
So, ST, tell us a little bit about your background, growing up, and how you found the Life Peaks University. And we've got so much to delve into what you do. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was a kid, I was really struggling with reading. I went to a lot of reading tutors and I spent a lot of time in the classroom, which I really liked, but my parents not so much so, especially when they were spending a lot of money on these reading tutors and it wasn't showing results. It wasn't that like I couldn't read, it was just like a really big challenge and it wasn't getting easier. So eventually they decided to bring in what's called Feuerstein mediators. Feuerstein is a method that works on how your brain is thinking instead of like teaching you a skill. So instead of doing more reading tutor and doing the typical things that you do when you go to learn how to read, they worked on how my brain was actually thinking, how my brain was processing information. And because of that, not only did my reading get improved, but every area improved. Every area academically, socially, I did much better. My confidence went up like crazy. And even at that age, at 11 years old, I knew this was something that like actually worked and made a difference, that I knew I wanted to learn more about it. I didn't realize it would be my whole life, but it did make me get started on this journey.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So what was the name of that technique again?
Feuerstein.
Feuerstein. So when you went through Feuerstein, and now that you've studied about it, is it for, like, I'm not sure, is it for people that perhaps have dyslexia, or is it noticing different learning styles? How does that actually work?
So it's really for everyone, like literally everyone, because essentially thinking is not one big thing. Thinking is made up of 28 thinking skills. Naturally, we all have stronger ones and weaker ones. And these thinking skills, how strong and weak, will depend on either genetics or your environment, and like your parents and your teachers and like how they raised you and spoke to you will affect your thinking skills. Now, everyone can always improve all of them. There's no such a thing as like being at a max at a thinking skill. But if a thinking skill is really weak, it is affecting you and getting in your way of doing certain activities and certain tasks. Anyone who, or should I say most people who are trained in the Feuerstein method, usually they specialize in a specific person. So either it will be like people with autism or people with special needs in general. It may be with elderly. It may be with like people in the corporate world. It may be with children, just people like me. Like I didn't have dyslexia, like I was tested for it, but didn't have dyslexia, but like was just struggling in school. And let's say I specialize in ADHD entrepreneurs. I've worked with many, many other types in the past, but that is like what I work with. So if that is something that a person would be interested in, usually it's best to find someone special in that, because then they also have their additional knowledge from like other things.
I love that. And how relevant is that? ADHD entrepreneurs. Isn't every entrepreneur out there ADHD? Like, I love that. How did you get into that?
It's good. Okay, so when I started training, I started training at 7.
I reckon everyone tells me I can't focus on anything for more than 5 minutes.
Well, I should say the actual research is that a third of entrepreneurs have ADHD, which is a lot more than like the average population. However, based on my experience and just to speak with other people, most people think it's actually more. So like you said, most entrepreneurs, people with ADHD are the movers and shakers, and people with entrepreneurs are the ones that do all the good things. So it's the two good things combined. But essentially, when I started my training at 17, I was having a different business. I actually had a photography business at the time. While I was in college, I had this photography business, and I was training in this Feuerstein. And it's a couple year process. Like every part that you learn is a part that you can start working with people, but there's like always more. It's a big program. There's a lot to go into it. And during that time, I also took Tony Robbins' course. He has a program called Rapid Planning Method. So just for people who don't know, it's planning based on your motivation instead of your to-do list. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? I thought at the time I was a super productive person. I would like never procrastinate and I would get things done like right away. But I was like, hey, here's a better way to plan. Let's learn this way to plan. However, no matter how hard I tried and I did all those exercises and all the things, I could not implement the method. Because a lot of what Tony spoke about was thinking about your goals or your motives for in like 6 months, a year time. Like, don't think of your to-do list right now. I have to do laundry or answer emails, right? Like, think of what your actual goals are. And I had a really hard time with that because I was very much the type of person that if you gave me something to do, I got it done now. My brain had a challenge being able to put something on a back burner and say it's okay if it happens later. Or even better, sometimes it's better, like if it happens later. Not everything needs to happen at the second. So, for example, just to show you how this showed up in my life, was if, let's say, I would remember that I had an errand to do, I would run out and I would go do that errand. But then 2 hours later, I would remember another errand. I would go out and do that errand. And then 2 hours later, I'd remember another errand and I'd go out and do that errand instead of going out once and doing all those errands at the same time because everything needed to happen now. So I didn't recognize this at that time. And I just thought I was being productive, right? Like I'm not procrastinating and I'm getting this done. So I couldn't implement Tony's thing. I was like, this is cool, but it's not for me. A few months later, I took another training in this Feuerstein method that worked specifically on the thinking skill called categorizations. Now, on a basic level, I could categorize, right? If you give me a group of balls and tell me to sort it by color, I could do that, no problem. sort it by animal, no problem. But once it becomes abstract items and you have to do it the other way, you have random items and you have to put them together in a group, that's where my brain really challenged with it and just couldn't do it. After I took this training, I realized what was happening and I improved my thinking skill dramatically. And I literally saved over 10 hours every week, changed the whole way I structured my business and tripled my business. My entire life just changed. My big picture thinking was able to think big. I was able to do Tony's course, I was oh, all I need to do is X, Y, Z. And I was able to do it all of a sudden. And it was then that I realized that this is not just for children and this is not just for people with learning disabilities or things like that. This is for high functioning adults who've done amazing, incredible things in their lives. By improving their thinking skills, it will make it even easier. So that was when I decided to shift away from working with children and actually work with adults and entrepreneurs.
Wow. You mentioned before that there are 28 thinking styles. That's quite fascinating to me.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, so it's really fascinating.
Yeah. Do you want to speak into that for us?
Yeah. So just to clarify, they're not thinking styles as in every person has a different one. We all use all of them. They're thinking skills. So we all use all of them. Yeah. Okay. And like I said, naturally, they're all stronger and weaker in some of them. Now, we have to use multiple of these thinking skills to do any task. In order for you to listen to this podcast, you are using your thinking skills. You're not conscious about it, but they are happening in the background while you are listening, while you are driving, while you are cooking, or whatever else you're doing. So if one of those thinking skills are weak, it's going to be a challenge for you. I'll give you an example. One of the thinking skills is called clear perception. Clear perception is being able to take in the information in a clear and organized way, right? You can't process it and do something with it if you don't first take in the information in a clear way. Now, if you've ever walked into a messy room that you know you needed to clean, but you didn't actually want to clean it, so you just went out and closed the door, you were probably struggling with clear perception, it's probably weak. Or if you come back from vacation and you have 500 emails and you don't know where to start because there's just way too many emails to respond to, you're probably struggling with clear perception. It's too much information for your brain to be able to handle at that time. That thinking skill is weak. So all you've got to do is improve that thinking skill, and then it's no longer a challenge. So in this case, we take in information through our 5 senses, whether we realize it or not, right? So you're taking information now by listening or by watching someone or by smelling, right? That's how we take in information. So to help your brain be able to take in the information in a clear and organized way, what you would do is you would go through the 5 senses and just ask yourself, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? Right? Go through all of them one at a time and list all the things you see. So you walk into your messy room that you just want to go out and close the door and you're like, oh, what do I see? I see laundry. I see garbage. I see pieces of paper. And by listing them out loud, it forces your brain to calm down and take that information in a clear and organized way. And then you can figure out what else you need to do in order to clean the room.
That's very much similar to how we deal with people who are suffering from anxiety, especially if they're having that panic attack, and we get them to ground themselves by saying, what can you see? What can you feel? What can you hear?
And I guess that came to your mind being a counselor, and that's great because you do use that. And in my mind is, oh my gosh, people who are overwhelmed are weaker in this skill.
Exactly.
That is so powerful. Tell me more.
Yeah. So just to add both of what you said is correct, right? So we think oh, we have anxiety. So why does that method, right? The 5 things that you see, they go 4, 3, 2, 1, right? It's really popular things that people learn in therapy or by counseling. But why does it work so well? We just learn it as a coping skill. But when you understand that it's because it's related to the thinking skill, then you can use it to improve the thinking skill. And then you just experience less anxiety or you experience less overwhelm.
This is powerful. So you learned this skill. You transitioned from working with children to working with entrepreneurs. What was that shift for you personally like? What were some of the challenges you felt?
I actually found it more enjoyable and less of a challenging. I connected with adults more. Personally, I enjoy talking with adults more. We could have deeper conversations and talk about more abstract things that children just aren't usually ready for. And so I just loved it. There was a transition point where I was doing both children and adults, but it was fun. The more I was doing with adults, the more I knew I wanted to work with adults. And then like, as I was like noticing a lot of them have ADHD in adults, and I was like, okay, let's do it like with ADHD adults.
Awesome. So an adult that comes to you who's also an entrepreneur, what are some of the skill sets? What are the most common things that you're finding is the struggle and where you help them to hone in on that skill?
Yeah. So because I work specifically with ADHD entrepreneurs, it would be anything that ADHD people struggle with. And then often they are told that that is just the way they are going to be forever. If you have ADHD and have been told like, oh, you're time blind, right? You don't have a concept of time. That's a very popular term. And with ADHD, like you're always running late and you don't realize how long tasks takes. And things like that. So usually what do most people teach you to do? Most people teach you to create some sort of like systems or hacks like around the concept of the fact that you are time blind. And sure, like maybe you need them now, but you don't want to stay like that forever. Just because you have ADHD doesn't mean you can't learn to understand time, because understanding time is one of the 28 thinking skills. And because it's a skill, by definition, that means you can learn it. People with ADHD may need to learn it in a different way, but they too can learn it. So to answer your question, the clear perception, that is one that people with ADHD struggle a lot with. Understanding time is one that people with ADHD struggle with. Working memory. So memory needed to do a task, not like to remember something later, but like to remember the information for right now. Similar to that is holding two pieces of information or more at the same time. So being able to not do two things, because we can't multitask, no matter what people tell you. We just task switch. But you could hold multiple pieces of information to do a task together. Impulsivity is another common one. All of those would be thinking skills.
Awesome. You talk about children and adults, and I'm just wondering, is it possible for someone to raise their IQ using these skills? And how do people raise their IQ?
Yeah. So there's actually been some research on it. I think like a 70 sessions or like a certain amount of sessions like actually raises your IQ. I don't like that so much because every session looks different for everyone. It's like never two of the same thing, but most definitely your IQ does get raised. I'm not a fan of IQ for that reason, that like IQ can change. And also IQ tests, once again, test where you are today, right here, right now, like at the time of the test, and don't actually like test what you're capable of doing or what you need to do to be able to raise your IQ. And once again, it is like telling you, okay, this you're good at, this you're not good at. So this is what you'll be able to do, and this is what you'll not be able to do. And in case you haven't realized yet, I don't like putting limits on people, and you're capable of much more than you realize.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm just wondering, you were brought up in Florida?
I grew up in New Jersey.
You grew up in New Jersey, lived in Florida for a while, and now living in Israel. That's quite a lot of transition as well, quite a lot of life changes. How have these skill sets helped you in adapting to normal life?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I don't think it's understood enough, but essentially, because these thinking skills are like, they're foundational, right? It's not like teaching you a system or a specific skill to apply to a specific area. You have these skills that afterwards are applied to every single area of your life. So I like to say that when you have strong cognitive functions together with the growth mindset, then you're not afraid of challenges, and you're not afraid, like, you'll be able to figure the things out because you literally have a toolbox of 28 thinking skills that are available for you in any challenging situation. So it most definitely has helped me time and time again. Every single time, like, I'm in a challenging situation, I'm able to like say like, oh, I'm grateful for this thinking skill and for that thinking skill. But I'm curious from you guys, where have you experienced challenging situations, and like what has helped you during that time?
I guess for us, it's obviously the story around our journey with infertility and miscarriages and 18 cycles of IVF. And I think for us, it wasn't until we started listening to people's stories, we came to a point where we decided that we were going to be transitioned from childless by nature to childless by choice. And it wasn't until we started allowing ourselves to become vulnerable that healing came, and we were able to
share with people,
able to start this podcast. Yeah. So definitely you're right. It's looking at what are we grateful for?
Yeah. And I think like for me, always saw it as we got something really special. Like we've been working through all these challenges together and we've always been there for each other, supporting each other every step of the way. And if that's one thing that gets us through this, then that's worth just transitioning from one thing to another, and because we'll always be there.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of support, or is that not very much so?
Yeah, because we definitely believe that healing happens in community and that you do need a support network around you, but not only for healing, but also for accountability. And we are really big believers in accountability, and we belong to some mentoring groups and they like to really keep us in community as well.
And I think it was so important to know as well that it's about choosing who we form a community with, what community that we join ourselves to, because you can go anywhere and not everyone's going to be supportive, or not everyone's going to provide the right support for you. So that's one thing that we noticed.
I just love how you've turned this around and interviewing us now. This is great. Thank you, ST. And also Charlene is a counselor. We're both believe in meditation, mindfulness, and we're both master trainers of neuro-linguistic programming. So it is a modality that we use quite a lot.
We've taken that through a lot of our lifestyle.
And that's definitely assisted us in our journey as well. If I can come back to you.
Thank you for answering my curiosity.
That's okay. Absolutely.
Even though it opened up too much more.
Yeah. Like I said to you before, it's about conversation and us getting to know each other. ST, and I hope I don't get emotional right now because I am a bit of an emotional person. Before the interview, I asked you the question because Israel is in a difficult position right now. And there is war happening at the moment. It's only 5 days in or 7 days in now. And I said, have you had the opportunity to leave? And you said, yes, but you chose to stay because people need you and there's not enough hope. That takes a real special someone and someone with a lot of resilience to make that decision and courage. So first of all, we want to honor you for doing that. We want to express our gratitude, even though we've only just met, that you're doing that. That wasn't an easy decision. What made you make that decision and have these skills? Because obviously these skills are now unconscious behaviors for you now, right? Yeah. Because you've been doing them for so long. And if you feel that you don't want to answer this, that's fine as well. I just want you to be true to who you are in this moment.
Yeah, I'm an open book, but I appreciate you, both of you, also for giving me this opportunity to share it. But essentially what was actually going to happen was last Tuesday, I was meant to go to England for a week and then come back to Israel for a day, finish up a few more things, and then go home. And so first I was like, okay, I'm going to go to England. I'll do what I need to do there. And then I'll figure out what I'm coming back with Israel. Cause like, I knew that they needed people here, but I wasn't sure like if I would be the right person and if staying here actually does anything and things like that. But when my flight to England got canceled and I was like, okay, I'm here anyways, it all of a sudden, that's not a question anymore. I'm not going. And it gave me another chance to like reevaluate the situation without like going away and coming back. And it made me realize like just who I am, that I don't have like major experience in these things, but just like being there, even for the people, right? Without forget about like the physical help, but just like actually being there for the people, what it does, like when they've heard that, oh, my flight is canceled and they know that I'm here for another week, it's easier for them. And I was like, hey, it's not just for another week. It's going to be for more time. Just being there, the presence of people during this challenging situation. So that's what really like helped me like solidify and make my decision. But to answer the question about the thinking skills, like you said, like I don't think about them consciously. They just happen. They're habitual at this point. One of the thinking skills very much related to making decisions is comparisons. And being able to compare what your options are, specifically the parameters of the options, right? So like on a simple level, often like we make decisions and we're like, oh, I want computer A because it's cheaper, but I want computer B because the screen is bigger. But those are different parameters. One is talking about price and one is talking about size. As soon as you know what parameters are your priority, then it's really easy to make decisions. You're not questioning price or size. It's like, what's more important? Then you just get to make that decision. And because that thinking skill is super strong and I tend to make decisions pretty quickly, the priority of understanding my value of understanding of human being and being able to how like the emotions of humans are just as important, if not more than like the physical of the humans. And there's so much physical that people can see their eyes and the horror that's going on, that it's like all this emotion is also there. And this also, so many people are suffering way, way, way more than people are talking about. And having that as a subconscious priority in my mind made it super easy for me to make that decision without double taking and like wondering like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is this safe? Things like that.
Thank you. Obviously, there's a lot of tension at the moment. What is it like just walking down the streets, or is that something you're not doing at the moment? Like, what is daily life like at the moment in Israel?
Yeah, so it really depends where you are. If you're down south, like closer to the border, or even up north, also near that border, then it's much more dangerous. Most people have left that area or trying to, because there's like literally just rockets all day just coming to that area. But people who are more central, life is just feels very, very unsafe. So first, you just have the fact that any moment there could be like a rocket getting shot at you, and there's the missile sirens that go off, and you have to go to the safe room. So like randomly, you don't get warning from it, and you just get woken up. Literally, that's what happened to us when war broke out, by a siren. That is not a fun thing to like get woken up to when you're in the middle of a meeting, and all of a sudden you have to like go to safe room because like if it hits you, then you don't know what happens. So that's just that. But then there's also just the very unsettling feeling of feeling unsafe. So yes, most people don't try not to go outside. Sometimes you need to, like grocery stores or essentials, and also like staying indoors all day is not very good for your mental well-being. So even if you just go down the corner or around the block, very conscious and you're very aware, and anyone who you don't know and is a stranger, like you're double taking them to make sure that they're safe. And they're also doing that to you, and you can feel that. And it's literally like when you get dressed in the morning, it's like, if something happens to me, will I be able to run in these shoes? That is what you're thinking about every time you put on a piece of outfit. Every thought that you are doing is thought like, if the worst happens, what will happen, right? And then you do get to the grocery stores and they're half empty because they don't have enough people to be able to do the deliveries and to do the things that you want to do. And then you go online and there's all the hate that I'm not going to get into now because it makes me very angry. But I will say one really good thing. There is an incredible, incredible, incredible amount of unity in the country, no matter your religion. That includes Jews, Christians, Muslims, like everyone who's actually in the country. There's a massive unity of helping people. People are like overtime volunteering and just doing massive acts of kindness for people. And there's just like, everybody realizes like they're together against like terrorism, and they're just all there together. So there is one really good thing coming from it.
Thank you so much for sharing. What can someone on the other side of the world, like Charlene and I, do? Like, can we do anything, or do we just have to send positive vibes, our prayers? Like, what can we do? We're so disassociated from what's happening.
Yeah. So most definitely, like you said, positive vibes and prayers most definitely help. That's most important. I think also there's a lot of misinformation. And so I'm not saying it's your place. Like, you don't have to go and educate people. And I don't like to like tell people to share things that they don't want to share. But if you do come across someone who you find is very uneducated and just doesn't know, and that's part of what a lot of like this hate is, just miseducation, and sharing them like resources that contain information. And if you have the means for funds, they need it desperately. Like their motto, like what's their essentially their EMS, like people like who help have literally like went through a year of supplies and funding in like 6 days because just of like how much help people need. And so things like that. And there's a bunch of organizations like Zaka that deals with like the dead bodies, like, and having to take them out. And they've seen like horrors of horrors. Like I've heard one person say like they always deal with the terrorism because unfortunately Israel deals with it a lot. And he's like, I've seen a lot of bad things in my life, but this is like horrible. And he's just like asking for people to pray that when they come back home, they're normal people. They're still able to be normal dads and normal husbands and normal friends after seeing all the horrors that they've seen. So like I said, prayers and good vibes are most definitely the best thing you can do.
You know, that's so true because post-traumatic stress.
Well, it wouldn't be post-traumatic now because it would still be present.
But it's
after,
still present, but after there's going to be a ripple effect. So this just doesn't end with war. It's going to affect generations.
Yeah. And then there's people like survived Holocausts and they survived the Nazis and then have been like killed by Hamas. So like you said, it goes for a while.
ST, again, thank you for being here today. You absolutely didn't have to do this. And Charlene and I just want to really appreciate everything that you're doing and really honor your courage because you are very courageous. So again, thank you. Going back to our ADHD entrepreneurs.
A little bit more enjoyable. I know. I appreciate that.
But I think it was important. It's important for people to know both sides of the story and not just what media is telling us and for you who's living there.
Especially since you're there on the forefront of everything at the moment, like you're experiencing it yourself.
And what I do is I'll get some of those organizations that you mentioned and make sure they're in the show notes. So if anyone wants to donate, please use the links in the show notes as well for that. ST, what should be the first step that an ADHD entrepreneur, when they've got all these balls in the air and it just feels like all the balls are about to fall down? What is the first step they need to do?
He's just asking for a friend.
I feel you. Okay. It's honestly what I hear every day. So you should just know you're not the only person. Okay. Well, let's back up for a second. There is a reason why there are these 100 balls in the air. And I wish I could just say like magic snap the finger. It's all going to go perfect. But I don't believe in hacks that just like put on a Band-Aid. I like to actually understand what is going on here so we could solve the root problem so that way it doesn't happen again. And if that is the case, then what you want to do is you want to really take a moment to understand what is the point of the struggle? What part of this whole thing is the most challenging? And if you're open to it, we could like talk about it together about specifically you, and that way people could get a better example. If not, then I could just share an example from like clients and things like that. Yeah. Okay. So what would you say is like the most challenging part of the situation?
I think for me, the most challenging part at the moment is having a to-do list, which is bigger than my time allows me to work on it. That's the biggest part. And then there's another part is relinquishing control, which is
going to do it the way we want it.
Yeah. So relinquishing control, because it's never going to be like the way I do it. And that's with Charlene. Like that's, yeah.
Oh, so you've got a good partner.
Not with Charlene. It's like with VAs or.
Not with Charlene. I was like, okay, like how are you saying that in front of her?
Yeah, not with Charlene.
Like Charlene seems overly qualified. So let's break that down. There are two separate issues here. We have the fact of our to-do list is too long and there's not enough time. Let's start there for a second, okay? Let's go a little deeper. Why is our to-do list too long?
I guess because there's so many areas to the one thing. If you look at, for instance, a podcast, there needs to be the social media, there needs to be the editing, there needs to be the show notes, there needs to be the reels, there needs to be the media, but also the site on our website. So one podcast isn't just about the interview, let's say. There's a whole lot of areas involved in that.
So just so I understand, is it the fact that it's like a massive job, or is it the fact that like I don't have enough time to do all of it?
The time.
The time. Okay. Because I feel like this actually is very related to the relinquishing control. You know that there's not enough time, which is something that people, the ADHD people often do struggle with, is that like they think they could stick in one more time, but you're realizing that there isn't enough time. And that means other people have to deal with it. So if you solve the fact of relinquishing control, then technically this isn't an issue anymore, or no?
No, it's not, because I relinquish control. And then I gain time to do other things that are more important. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's go to the relinquishing control. Okay. What part of relinquishing control are you afraid of, or do you not want to do?
For me, this is our baby. This is our heart on our sleeve. And our mission is to give people a platform to share their stories and how they've rewritten their stories. will someone I give control over it have the same heart space that we have to make sure the product is as good as we can do it? So I guess it's a transference of values.
Like, how do we transfer those values across to someone else who can do it the way we want it to?
I like how specific that was. Amazing. So what requires you to transfer those values?
I guess mentoring someone that's had a similar journey would have similar values.
Yeah.
So I guess it's bringing the right people on board with similar values and journeys, maybe.
If that's the case, then is your problem solved?
Yes.
We didn't even get to the thinking skills and your problem was solved. Awesome.
Okay.
That's it.
Now, guys, if you have similar problems to me and Charlene, make sure you go to Life Picks University because it is that quick.
I will say that often it's like it is related to a thinking skill. So everybody, that's why we have to go down the path. Everyone who's listening to this will want to go down that path with themselves or with a partner to help them be able to figure it out, like what is the actual problem there. And you might just find that it's related to a thinking skill, right? So you might be able to say, oh, even if I do have the person that's the values, I'm struggling to be able to communicate. I'm just giving an example because there will be someone else who will get there, right? So then how do you get better at communication? And that will lead to some of the thinking skills. So for example, labeling, calling things by their right name, concepts by their right name, making sure everyone is using the same labels and giving a full response, being able to express yourself clearly and cohesively are both thinking skills. So if you find yourself struggling, let's say, to express yourself clearly and cohesively before you hire that person, even if it's the right person who matches up with your values, you will want to take some time to improve that thinking skill. It won't take long as you're conscious about it and you work on it. And then when you hire that person, it will work out much more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's so powerful. Where does someone start? Do you offer courses? Do you offer online coaching programs? What are some of the resources that you're offering people?
So I have a 90-day program, a 90-day cohort where we work together in groups of 6 to improve your cognitive functions, essentially to improve your thinking skills. And what's super fun about it is everyone else in there is an entrepreneur who has ADHD, or you don't have to be officially diagnosed like ADHD, but like ADHD tendencies, just like all the ones we've been speaking about. And you really get to make friends with people who are like you. So that's super fun while you're all building each other up and improving your thinking skills. I also have a free thinking skills assessment. This goes through all the 28 thinking skills, and you could see right away where you are with each one of the 28 thinking skills and could see which ones you need to improve on first. And that is at lifepicksuniversity.com/brain. So lifepicks, P-I-X, university.com/brain. And you will get you straight to that assessment.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good. We usually have 2 questions at the end of our podcast. And the first of those this year is, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to start to rewrite their life story?
I think the first thing you need to do is really develop that growth mindset. The book Mindset by Carol Dweck. There's essentially 2 mindsets, a fixed mindset or growth mindset. And fixed mindset is the way they are, is the way he's always going to say. And that's essentially what you're saying by saying your story is like this. And it is just really horrible and it's really challenging. And as soon as you switch into the growth mindset, then you're like, okay, this is part of the process and I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow and it's okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes and all that these things happen to me is part of the process. And just quick action step for you to take from that is to watch your words. As soon as you say, I can't, or this is impossible, or things like that, you are falling into the fixed mindset. By you saying, I am learning more about this, or I can't do this yet, or things like that, then you're going to the growth mindset. All of a sudden, your brain is going to start picking up other things that you didn't realize were before, and you will be able to rewrite your story.
So good. And it's just like, like another one of those that we hear is, it's just the way I am, when you're challenging someone.
Exactly. And it's like, I hear that a lot with ADHD. It's like, just the way I am. I'm just ADHD and I just will never be able to focus when I need to be able to focus. And it's like, you could rewrite your story. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, ST, if you were to go back and rewrite your life story now, what would that look like?
I probably honestly would go and take my advice and apply it earlier of developing a growth mindset from a younger age. It really started when I was improving my thinking skills. Then I didn't know about Carol Dweck and growth mindset at the time, but it was helping me develop a growth mindset. And I wish that I've started it probably from primary or first grade. because like as a kid, I always absolutely loved learning and was like very much more outgoing. And then I came to school and I didn't do really well and became very shy and things like that. But I wish I had that growth mindset as a young child. I think it would have most definitely helped me. And also just like not caring what people think goes together with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
ST, it's been a real privilege having you on our show today. We want to thank you for your time. And we just want to speak protection over you and your family and all your friends over your life right now. And we just speak that you will be safe throughout this whole journey. And we will keep in touch, okay?
We will, yes.
We will definitely keep in touch and check in on you and give you permission to check in on us if we've relinquished control or not.
I will watch it. I will hold you accountable. How long do you need? A month? 2 months?
90 days.
90 days. Wow.
90 days.
Okay.
Your 90-day program.
You will have no excuse after 90 days. I am sorry.
Awesome. If you want to know more about ST and what she does, go to lifepixuniversity.com and remember her free download as well. And we'll have all our information on our show notes as well. And you can get direct access to her social medias and website. ST, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. Oh, that was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, how fun was that? Especially the way she came back at us.
Yeah, like who's the interviewer here? Who's doing the podcast? But some of the key things that I really learned is her 28 thinking styles.
Yeah.
She talks, and it made thinking skills, and it made sense, maybe there's skills and we can all learn them, and maybe there's a short circuit somewhere or a skill's not that strong, and that's why there's some areas of struggle as well.
Absolutely. It really seemed to hone in on that hope factor, doesn't it? That like it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, or what your situation is, there's always a chance to learn something new and to be able to just change how we operate.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I think also, again, I just want to honor her courage for choosing to stay in Israel during this time and just to be support to everyone. And I love the fact that she goes, actually, we're becoming more united no matter what the religion is. Because, and I'm not getting into the politics of it. I don't really understand the politics. But it was just good to hear an insider's perspective today.
And that sense of hope that there is unity, there is that mutual acts of kindness for each other.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.